Hi, Miss Corville's here again. Um, I have a friend today, and my friend has been sitting in my office for quite a long time. I know that a lot of you have your sleep buddies for nap time. You have animals that you play with at home. So I thought this would be a great book to read to you that kind of goes along with that. Okay, everybody ready? One of my favorite books, The Velveteen Rabbit by Marjorie Williams. And it is illustrated by Elizabeth Miles. There once was a Velveteen Rabbit, and in the beginning he was splendid. He was fat and bunchy with whiskers, and having a hard time seeing it, guys. Hang on. And his ears were lined with pink satin. On Christmas morning, he sat wedged to the top of the boy's stocking, with a sprig of holly between his paws, and his effect was just charming. For a long time he stayed in the toy cupboard in the nursery. Being made of velveteen, some of the expensive mechanical toys quite snubbed him, and he pretended that they were real. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside you, or a stick out handle?" The only toy who was kind to the rabbit was the Skin Horse. The Skin Horse had lived in the nursery longer than any of the others, and he was very wise. "Real isn't how you're made," said the Skin Horse. "It's a thing that happens when a child loves you. It takes a long time. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off. You get loose in the joints and very shabby." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the the Skin Horse. "But when you are real, you don't mind being hurt." The rabbit sighed. He longed to become real, and yet the idea of growing shabby was rather sad. He wished that he could become real without uncomfortable things happening to him. One evening, when the boy was going to bed, he could not find the china doll that he always slept with. Nana, who ruled the nursery, was in a hurry, and was too much it was too much trouble to hunt for the china dog at bedtime. So she simply looked about her and made a swoop. "Here," she said, "take your old bunny. He'll do to sleep with tonight." That night, and for many nights after, the Velveteen Rabbit slept in the boy's bed. At first he found it rather uncomfortable, for the boy hugged him tight, and rolled over him, and sometimes pushed him so far under the pillows that the bunny rabbit could scarcely breathe. But very soon he grew to like it, for the boy used to talk to him and make nice tunnels for him under the bedclothes that he said were like the real burrows that real rabbits lived in. This is kind of what a rabbit's burrow looks like under the ground. When the boy dropped off to sleep, the rabbit would snuggle down close under his little warm chin and dream with the boy's hands clasped close around him all night long. And so time went on, and the little rabbit was so very happy that he never noticed how his beautiful velveteen fur was getting shabbier and shabbier, and his tail coming unsewn, and all the pink rubbed off his nose, where the boy had kissed him. Near the house where they lived, there was a wood. We usually call that the forest. And in the warm summer evenings, the boy liked to go there to play, and he would bring the Velveteen Rabbit with him. And before he wandered off, he would pick flowers or play pirates among the trees. He always made the rabbit a little nest so he could get quite cozy. One evening, while Rabbit was just lying there, he saw two strange beings creep up out of the tall bracken near him. They were rabbits like himself, but quite furry and brand new. They must have been very well made, for their seams didn't show at all. The rabbit stared hard to see which side of the clockwork stuck out, for he knew that people who jump generally have something to wind them up, but he couldn't see it. "Why don't you get up and play with us?" one of them asked. "I don't feel like it," said the rabbit. He didn't want to explain that he had no clockwork. "Oh," said the rabbit, "I don't believe you can." "I can," said the rabbit. "I don't want to." But wild rabbits have sharp eyes, and one stretched out his neck and looked. "He hasn't got any hind legs. Fancy a rabbit with any hind legs." And he began to laugh. "He doesn't smell right. He isn't a rabbit at all. He isn't real." The little rabbit nearly began to cry. Just then the boy ran past them, and with a stamp of feet and a flash of white tails, two strange rabbits disappeared. "Come back and play with me," called the little rabbit. "Oh, do come back." But there was no answer. The Velveteen Rabbit was all alone, and for a long time he lay very still, hoping that they would come back. But they never returned, and presently the boy came and carried him home. Weeks passed, and the little rabbit grew very old and shabby. He even began to lose his shape, and he scarcely looked like a rabbit any more, except to the boy. To him he was always beautiful, and that was all the little rabbit cared about. Then one day the boy became ill. His face grew very flushed, and he talked in his sleep, and his little body was so hot that it burned that the rabbit when he held him close. Strange people went into the nursery, and a light burned all night. The little Velveteen Rabbit lay there, hidden from sight under the bedclothes, afraid that somebody might take him away, for he knew that the boy needed him. It was a very long, weary time. Presently, the fever turned, then the boy got better. He was able to sit up in bed and look at his picture books, while the little rabbit cuddled close by his side. And one day they let him get up and dress. It was a bright sunny morning, and they carried the boy onto the balcony. The boy was going to the seaside tomorrow. Nana and the doctor talked about it while the little rabbit lay under the bedclothes, and he listened. The room was to be disinfected, and all the books and toys that the boy had played with had to be burned. Just then Nana caught sight of the rabbit. "And what about this old bunny?" she asked. "That," said the doctor, "why, that's a mass of scarlet fever germs." Scarlet fever is another big disease that was popular way back in the early days. "Burn all of that at once," said the doctor. So the little rabbit was put into a sack with the old picture books and lots of rubbish, and carried out to the end of the garden. A gardener promised to come early the next morning and burn the whole lot. That night the boy slept in a different room with a splendid new bunny, all white with plush and glass eyes. And while the boy dreamt at the seaside, the little rabbit lay among the old books and felt very lonely. By wriggling a bit, he was able to get his head through the opening of the sack and look out. He was shivering, for by the time his coat had worn so thin from hugging that it was no longer any protection at all. Nearby he could see the thicket of raspberry canes, in whose shadow he had played with the boy on bygone mornings, and had a great sadness come over him. A tear, a real tear, trickled down his shabby velvet nose and fell to the ground. And then, where the tear had fallen, a flower grew, with slender green leaves and a blossom of a golden cup. And presently the blossom opened, and out stepped a fairy, a dress of pearl and dewdrops. She gathered the little rabbit up in her arms and kissed him on his velveteen nose that was all damp from crying. "Little rabbit, I am the nursery magic fairy," she said. "I take care of all the playthings and that all the children have loved. When they are worn out and the children don't need them any more, then I come and take them with me and turn them into real." As she held the little rabbit close in her arms and flew with him into the wood to the open glade between the tree trunks where all the wild rabbits danced. When they saw the fairy, They all stopped, and stood around a ring to stare at her. "I've brought you a new playfellow," the fairy said. "You must be very kind to him and teach him all that he needs to know, for he is going to live with you forever and ever." And she kissed the little rabbit again and put him down on the grass. "Run and play, little rabbit," she said. But the little rabbit sat quite still. "I think the little rabbit is here. Or maybe the little rabbit is here. There's rabbits everywhere." He remembered about his hind legs, and he didn't want the other rabbits to see that he didn't have any. He didn't know that the fairy had changed him altogether. Just then something tickled his nose, and before he thought what he was doing, he lifted his hind toe to scratch. He found that he actually had hind legs. He gave one leap, and he grew so excited that when the last he did stop to look for the fairy, she had gone. He was a real rabbit at last. Autumn passed, and winter, and in the spring, when the days grew warm and sunny, the boy went out to play in the wood behind the house. While he was playing, a rabbit crept out from the bracken and peeped at him. And about his soft little nose and his round black eyes there was something very familiar. And that's when the boy thought to himself, "Why, he looks just like my old bunny that was lost when I had scarlet fever." But he never knew that it was really his own bunny, come back to look at the child who had helped him to become real. The end. Now, isn't that a great book about becoming real? Of course, it's a make believe. Our little stuffed animals don't become real. But I bet you have your animals that you feel very close to. So take good care of them till I see you. You know, I love hugging all my grandchildren when we have PBIS days. I love you guys. Look forward to your next storybook.